Hi guys, and welcome to FORGE WRIGHT. Thanks for dropping in. If you haven't seen the channel before, my name's Andy. The channel is based around learning to become a blacksmith, starting as an absolute beginner. I cover setting up the forge, making the tools required to start smithing, learning basic techniques, and developing your skills. I also make metal fabrication videos, which can be very helpful when trying to build some of the tools and equipment that you'll need to use in the workshop. So, let's roll the intro and get started on today's video. Well, today's video is going to be constructing my welding table. As you will know if you're a regular viewer on the channel, I have not got a very good welding table. It's just actually an old sewing machine table which has got a timber top and a crappy old piece of steel plate attached to the top of it, and I've been making do with that for quite some time. But I do a lot of welding, so I need a good welding table. So this video will be a long video, and apologies for that if you don't like long videos, but there you go. I'm going to show the entire fabrication of this table, and hopefully you'll enjoy the videos. This is going to be the surface of my new welding table. So I have bought some 6mm by 150mm flat bar, and I'm going to cut, I think I've got 10, could be 9, yeah. I'm going to cut 9 pieces, 857mm long. I know that's an odd number, but it works out to be the appropriate division into a length of bar 8 meters long. So that's about as much as I can get out of an 8-meter bar. As you can see, gets through most of the way and doesn't catch that last bit. That does a pretty decent job, that. I'll now continue to cut another. Yeah, that's got a bit of a dag hanging off the end of there. Yeah, continue to cut another 8 of those. This is 75mm by 75mm box section, and it is, I believe it's 4mm thick. Now I'm just using this as a flat surface at the moment. This is just framing. I've got 2 more of these which I'll make the legs with, and this is to make the cross, so the long framing segments, and I'll cut pieces off the ends to make the cross framing segments. And then I've got some channel over here, 75 by 40mm channel. This is what the bolts will be welded to. So that's pretty much what it's going to look like size-wise, which I think is a pretty good size. It's going to have 1 inch or 25mm spaces between to stick clamps down and stick them through, rotate and tighten up. This will be positioned there, so just ends up being long enough to have about 20mm, I believe it is, on either side. That's right. What I've got to do is decide on where my positioning is, and then I've got to mark where my holes will go in here, and then I'm going to put bolts through those holes. Then once the bolts go through the holes and I put this back in place, they will sit, the bolt heads will sit down onto the plates, get it all lined up where I want it, clamp it all down, and then weld the bolt heads to the back of the plates. I don't know why I buy this stuff. It's Chinese, $3 or something on the internet. This mechanism here is absolute rubbish. Every time it wears down to here, you got to pull the entire mechanism out, reinsert your chalk, bend up the tab because it's made out of, like, I don't know, it must be 1/4 millimeter thick material, and once you depress it to push it in, it doesn't come back up again. So just rubbish. But anyway, that's what you get for buying cheap rubbish, trying to save money. Okay, I've got these positioned now. So they are now 100 mil from the edge, and that one's 20 mil from that edge and 20 mil from that edge, and that is the same. So now I'm going to put my markers down here. Got to punch those. That's those marked up and center punched. Happy with that. All I've got to do now is see if these drop through. And they do. Look at that. Beautiful. Just what I wanted. Get the bolts. Bit loose, 17 mil, whereas they're 16 mil, but nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid. I've only got one 16 mil, so I'll stick that on there. So, that's that one done. And somehow, I managed to fall 6 short. So I'm going to have to go back out tomorrow and buy 6 more bolts. I shall do a spot on each side of these, each one of those, all the way along, just to secure them up. Then I can take the nuts off and know that they will drop back on in the right place. Dropped in at nuts and bolts today and picked up the rest of the nuts and bolts, because if you remember, I was 6 short, so I've got those now. So that's pretty much where they're going to be attached. 2 strips down like that, 100 mil hanging out on this side and about 25 mil hanging out either side of the ends. So just at the moment I've got them just clamped upside down, and as you can see from the top of this nut here, they've got this imprinted writing on here, which is not as flat as I'd like them to be. So I'm just about to go through and take the little flap disc and just give them a touch up on top. As you can see, I've done the tops of these, so just enough to take the writing and the
black paint off them. That way I'll get a nice even sit on the steel so they won't rock about when I'm trying to weld them up or clamp them down. So just going to do that now on the other side. Then I can flip them over, get them in the perfect position, get them clamped down, pull out the welder and start welding them on. Right, that was a bit annoying, a bit tedious, but has done well. It's got me nice little bright steel edges as well as nice even flat tops. So now I can flip them over. I'm just using little pieces of 1-inch PVC electrical conduit to create the spacings between. That, as you can see, is nice and flat on the table and nice and flush with the edge of the channel. But yes, now I can weld them in place where they are. I know it's only the underneath of the table, but it still helps to make clean up a little bit better. Here we are, finished doing all the welding. Lots and lots of little tack welds all the way around, every one of those hex bolts joining on to the base, the underneath side of the flat bar. Okay, just cutting the legs now, so I'm going to build the framework on the bottom, build the framework for underneath on top. It's nice and flat here now, so I will use this to construct my frame on. Right, let's have a go at this. It gives me a very, very clean cut. Beautiful. The idea is I have this down here and welded to the side of this C-section. This just not quite enough room to get everything in until I get it in a bit. Right, so that's welded to there. Have my 2 bolts attached to that, the plate attached to the top, and then I can grab the whole thing and extend it out like so. Righto, cross member between the legs. One of the many good things about having the gap and a nice square perfect 150mm plates is that you can line the top of this up with that edge, line the top of that up with that edge, and you know that they're not out of line with each other, so both of those will be exactly in the same spot. I can then set this down whatever amount that I like. I can pull it down so that it's perfectly flush with the inside of this one, and then I know that the inside of the bottom of here is exactly 150mm below the top of there. Well, I'm getting there now. I've got my legs welded to the cross brace on both ends. I haven't cleaned that up yet. I missed one. Never mind. I'll get that. But they're welded on now, and nice and straight, nice and square, exactly the same distance between top and bottom. And exactly the same distance, or lined up perfectly with the channel. These are my long braces. They're just sitting there, so ready to go. Been cut to length, just need to be welded on when after the legs have been welded to the base. Trying to design the slide out mechanism that I can then set my cold cut saw into. Now the cold cut saw has these little feet screwed onto the bottom of it, but in evolution's wisdom they decided that they would put on 3 feet and have this guard here, which I take it is to stop chips flying around everywhere and hitting you and spreading all over the workshop. Just a bit of a protection against flying chips. But it means they don't have 4 screw-in feet, they have 3 screw-in feet, and then this, which you can take these feet off, but you can't take that off. Well, not without cutting the thing out. So makes it really difficult to just remove them, the feet, have 50mm deck and setting this to 50mm. So now I'm going to have to cut into this in order to be able to drop it down inside. I also need to screw just screws back into here and here and here and here, and then my frame will have to come to here like so, my slide out frame that this can sit on, and then I've got to make this a 50mm gap between here and here. This is currently
65, but then, sorry, it's 64, but then we've got a 6mm plate, so that makes it 70mm from there to there, 50mm from here to here, which leaves 20mm. I've got to find and raise this bar here where the slide out is. Got to raise it, which is down because the whole thing's upside down, so I've got to bring this towards the underneath side, 20mm. So now I've come to a 20mm piece of bar, and I'm going to cut off 4 75mm long sections, which I will then weld in between this bar, this tube, and that, which will be welded to there, which will raise this 20mm, taking the 70mm gap and making a 50mm gap, which is the 50mm of my plate, my deck. There we go, 2 pieces welded together. Haven't cleaned up the ends at all. That side I shall clean up a little bit as well, because that'll be just sitting on the piece that I weld. It doesn't need both sides welded, because it'll be welded along this edge and this edge, and then the other piece welded to that along this edge and this edge, so they're just spacers. There we have the cleaned up version. Bit of spatter there, but the ends are cleaned up now. That'll sit nice and flat and act as a very nice spacer.
Time to tack these rails onto the framing here and get ready to flip her over. Okay, got them tacked up good enough to be able to flip it over and work on it from the appropriate way up. I've just got some little markers, a single marker on there and a double marker on there, so I know exactly which way my telescope sliders go in from which end, just to make life easier when I go to put it back together again, because often they go in one way and they're a bit sticky the other way. Righto, just in the process of taking the galvanizing off these nuts and bolts, which will be the adjusters on my legs to, once I roll it around on the casters, I can then secure it in place with these. So I'm going to be welding these nuts together, not like that obviously, I've just got them tightened up together while I'm cleaning them up. I soaked them in vinegar overnight, put them on the wire wheel, and as you can probably see, the wire wheel got most of the galvanizing off, but not all. So I'm just touching them up on the belt grinder. That's looking pretty good. That's the second one, so, sorry, third one now. So I'll go through this one and show you how quickly it touches it up. I've also got the fan on over here, blowing the zinc dust away. got these new gloves. They are graphite impregnated steel weave. They are really, really good. Was very dubious when buying them, but yeah, I'm finding them extremely good for a job like this. They're cut resistant, um, very comfortable, very flexible. You've still got a lot of dexterity. It's still got a lot of touch, feel. They're warm, so even with the breeze that's coming off here and off there, and it's not exactly warm here today, it's about 6 degrees Celsius. I'm very impressed. I might put a link in the description for people to check out. I'll keep using them and see how they go over time and let you know. Got all the zinc coating off these two nuts now, and I've got them lined up with each other so that this thread here winds in and out successfully. So I'll put them in the vise. I've put some gaffer tape around here to protect the thread, so I just wind that up like so, spot weld these together, and then I know they're not going to move, and I can weld them all up and know I'm not going to get spatter all over the threads. Right, I've got them welded together and tightened back up on the main nut, so I'll just grind off these surfaces now. Okay, so the plan is they are welded to there. This is welded, is screwed into there without that nut in the end, of course. It goes on the very end, and then that can be screwed up and screwed up and down this double nut, touch the ground or come off the ground so you can roll it around. Better, nicely cleaned up now, so that'll come off there. That's got a few nicks in it here, but I've cleaned the whole thing up with a wire wheel so it'll spin pretty easily. They go like that. That screws in from the top. Right, so that goes in there, like so. That goes on the bottom of there, and is welded closed in here. Then that that whole unit is welded to there to stabilise it on the cement floor, depending on whether I'm on flat ground or not. I've got some 12 mil nuts, which I reckon I'm going to weld this in so that the big nut sits there, and then weld a 12 mil nut to the top of that. Grind that nice and flat so that I can get this small nut welded to that. Right, that's got him ground off nice and flat on top. Now that nut will sit nicely on there, and I can spot weld around that. There we go. Righto, that's looking pretty good now. I reckon I got a little bit of hole in there, but that's alright, I don't mind that. I'll get a socket on there now and be able to screw that down. Right, time to do a few tacks on here so I can secure this whole bracket unit. The reason I put it on this and not just attached to the side of here is because when that rotates, it needs to be able to miss this so that I can leave this down and I don't have to have it wound all the way down to here so that can rotate. If it was here and it was up there, it would hit it. Don't want that, so I've made these little brackets on the side of here which can allow it to pass around. Righto, that won't take much cleaning up with the grinder. Now I'm going to give it a good clean up. Just go over it with a worn out flap disc and get some of these little bits of spatter you can see off here, on here, and anywhere else they might be. Then I'll probably ring Baz, me mate from just up the road, get him to come down, help me lift it over, and yeah, then I can start thinking about giving it a spray job. Although I might clean it up, spray it from what I can get to from this side, and then do the rest when I flip it back over again. I'll see how I go there. I can give it a really good clean up and sort it out. Ah, yes, that's what I'll do. I'll actually do some welding along these junctions here, and that'll fully secure it. Then I won't have to weld it anywhere else. Just finished going over it with the flap disc, getting all of the potential nicks and snicks and rough bits, little BBs and whatnot, burrs and things off everything. So it's about as clean as it's going to get and as clean as it needs to be in that respect. But I'm now going to give the entire thing a good wipe over on this side with some degreaser. I've bought a water-based degreaser here, 5 litres of it, which you water down 10:1, and I got some sort of workshop towel, and got some warm water in there because it's freezing here, and I'm going to go over and give it a good clean over, then rub it with a clean dry cloth, let it totally dry, and then I'm going to paint it, the bits that I can get to from this side before I flip it over and do the rest. There we go. Chosen to go with this colour, so she's all painted up, that first coat at least. I've got the fan on it here, blowing air onto it. It's really cold here, so it might not dry out real fast, but I think the blue looks pretty good. I'm going to let that dry for a little while. I got Baz dropping in about an hour and a half to help me turn it over, so I'm hoping it dries out enough to be able to manhandle it. I've got the threads on these leg adjusters taped up so that I can pull them off later and it's not all clagged up with paint on the thread. So that'll be the only bit that looks silver, but I don't think that's going to worry me too much at all. I've also got these telescopic sections plugged up with a bit of shop towel in each one of those, so that they don't get clagged up with paint and I don't have to scrape it off later. I've got it turned over. Baz dropped in and gave me a hand to get her over. I'm glad he did, because there's no way I would have got it done on my own, not without some serious injuries. So it's looking pretty good. It's looking very flat. A bit hard to see, but yeah, looking very, very flat. A few little scratch marks in it from sliding it and moving it around on top of the steel piece that I had underneath. Must have got a bit of spatter or something in between the steel bar that it was sitting on
and the tabletop itself, but nothing the flap disc won't fix. So I've got myself the flap disc out with the Scotch-Brite on it. I'm going to go over the whole thing, give it a good clean up, then I'll go around and make sure I've sorted out all these edges. I'll do that with a sandpaper disc, sort out all these edges, get these so they're not too sharp. There we go. That's nice and shiny now. Very, very smooth. You can run your hand over it. Bit of dust on it still from when I was giving it the polish up, cleaning up the edges. As you can see, I've taken all the sharp corners off now, so they're all pretty good. Nothing to cut yourself on, and safely run your hand all over it, and not be concerned about getting any sort of a cut or a slice. She's looking like a welding table now. If I kick those locking wheels off, I can push it around, pull it here and there, push it into my ideal spot, lock the wheels, and she's in. And then should I wish to secure it even more solidly, I can just wind down those. They're sitting about ½ inch or inch in places off the deck at the moment, but when I get it somewhere and I want to make it really secure so it doesn't wobble at all, I just wind them down. Like I say, they're easy to just push with your foot, pull it into the shape that you want it. I'll have him over here for now. Pull it back that way. Done. Looking great. Very happy.
Phew. Well, that was a long video. Well done if you've managed to sit through that incredibly long video, and apologies if you got bored with sections of it, but yeah, I showed the entire thing. I ended up with a pretty good table, very good table, I think. I've been wanting to build this table for a really, really long time. Been making do with some rather crappy welding tables. Not really tables. I had a little table about this big, which was effectively a piece of timber with a piece of metal plate laid across the top of it, and it was too low and it was rickety, and I couldn't put a vise on it properly without it wanting to topple over. So I'm really happy to have this table now. It's only part one, so this was part one. There will be upgrades to this table, and I'll make that part two of the video. But yes, as I say, incredibly long 40-minute video. Congratulations if you managed to watch the whole thing. If you didn't, I understand why. So thanks very much for watching Forge Wright, and if you haven't subscribed, I hope you will. Hit that like button and make comments in the section below if you'd like. You can hit the subscribe button down here if you fancy it, and there'll be some icons up here with past videos and future videos and things, playlists and things like that. So thanks again. Really happy with the way this turned out, and it will get a lot of work into the future, and shouldn't be too long, and I will have part two up where I make the extensions out the side and some fixings, the telescopic sections where I put my chop saw, and I'm going to build a plasma cutting area at the other end. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and hopefully not too distant future I will have some more videos up as well. I'll try to get some forging videos up. I've got a couple of things in the making for the secret project, but can't talk too much about that. And yeah, try to get some forging videos up, but I got a lot of fabrication to do. As I said, I'm doing some work on my workspace here, the workshop. Lots of upgrades, lots of big things coming. So keep an eye out, have patience with me. Got a lot going on, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. I know it's been probably 2 weeks since I've put a video up, and that was just a vlog type video where I apologized for not having any videos up. But yeah, won't be too long, and I should get back into the swing of things and start using that. Okay, thanks again for watching Forge Right. Bye for now.